Hello, everybody, and once again, it is time to vent some anger because I was today years old when I learned that on Thursday, the president of the United States dismantled and removed all references to slavery from the Liberty Bell Center in Philadelphia. Now, I don't know where you fall on this particular matter. But this is very important to me, and it should be important to you. It should be important to every American because I said this in the live stream that I did yesterday that diversity is what makes America great. It is what separates the United States of America from virtually every nation on earth. The fact that different people from different ethnicities, different cultures, different languages have all come together in this great melting pot to help produce something that was exemplary and extraordinary. But there are people who don't take pride in that exemplary, extraordinary aspect of our heritage. And it's not only disappointing, it's actually fucking angering. Let me explain. Some of the exhibits, excuse me, that were in the Liberty Bell Center were around what they call the president's house. And for those of you that don't know, that Philadelphia was the nation's capital prior to the carving out and the establishment of the Federal District of Columbia, shared between Maryland and Virginia. And so the president's residence was on this site in Philadelphia. And so part of the history of this house is that slaves maintained it. Now, let me just say this, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Condoleezza Rice said it the best, that the birth defect of the United States of America was slavery and racism. And when you don't deal with birth defects, they become debilitating. And I use my own example of being born with a club foot, and my parents made the decision to break my foot, to set it or to have it corrected surgically. And then I was able to have a normal life. I was able to participate in sports. I was able to serve in the military. I was able to participate in martial arts and in boxing and things like that. I had a full life because my parents made the decision to correct something that was wrong with me at birth. And because this birth defect has never been properly addressed, the United States is now dealing with the long-term consequences of not having corrected this. And here's the thing. There are some people, some well-meaning, some very, intellectually honest people have tried over the years to make sure that this part of the narrative of the building of America was included in our history, because for a long time it had been whitewashed. And we're going to really unpack this word in a few minutes. But the telling of how brutal and awful slavery was, this is something this country has to deal with, because this is part of the generational trauma that plagues the Black community to this day. Much like the genocide of Native Americans plagues that culture and that society to this day. It's like these things have never been, there's never been a formal apology. There's never been any meaningful restitution. There's never been any reparation for any of this. Now, let me unpack the whitewashing, because when you talk about whitewashing, there was an old thing where people had picket fences, the traditional American white picket fence. And in order to keep that fence at a certain state of whiteness, that it had to be painted frequently. And that type of painting was called whitewashing. It was to to paint over the dirt and the debris and the weather, the weather, the effects of weather on the paint, so that it would remain nice and white. And that's kind of what goes on here in America. And I hate to say this, but there are so many significant contributions of Black people, of Native Americans, of Hispanic people, of Asian people in this country, to where America would not be America without these contributions. But there are people that don't want this history being told. Now, I'm going to cite this something from the Interior Department, and it says basically the Department of the Interior is implementing Secretary's Order 3431, which carries out President Donald J. Trump's executive order on restoring truth and sanity to American history. Meditate on that for a minute. Truth and sanity to American history, the statement said. The president has directed federal agencies to review interpretive materials to ensure accuracy, honesty, and alignment with shared national values. Now, when we talk about shared national values, who is sharing? Is it one narrative, or is it the total nuance narrative? But let me continue. Following completion of the required review, the National Park Service is now taking action to remove or revise. And let me say this about revise, because frequently people who cite Black history, Native American history, Asian history, or Latino history in America, they are accused of being revisionist. In other words, they're rewriting history to suit a particular narrative. Now, here they're saying the quiet part aloud, to remove or revise interpretive materials in accordance with the order. Trump's executive order orders parks to restore monuments, memorial statues, markers, and similar properties that purportedly created a false revision of history or improperly minimize or disparage certain historical figures or events. Listen, this is the quiet part out loud, because the reality is that what they're saying here is what has been happening regarding the histories of the contributions of non-whites to America. So now what they're doing is they're flipping the script, just like President Trump. I say president, I use my air quotes and lowercase p and lowercase t. I have to say this because he had said that the Civil Rights Act was very, very bad for white people. And let me say this. If you're looking at the economic pie as something finite, that it's limited, then yes, maybe somebody else getting a bigger slice of pie does reduce your slice of pie. But that's not the way this works. The economy is pretty fluid and pretty broad, and it also is capable of both growing and shrinking. So someone getting a seat at the table is not automatically reducing someone else's serving size. Do you understand what I'm saying? But let me keep going here, because this is just really amazing. So what I did is I put together a little slideshow, because my wife and I, we had the opportunity shortly after my mother's passing to visit Philadelphia as a connecting there as a flight connection. It wasn't a destination, but we said, while we're here, let's go and do X, Y, and Z. And so we actually visited the Liberty Bell Center, and we took literally hundreds of pictures. And there was so many things that I mean, I'm a history buff, and so is my wife. So there are some things that we knew going into this, and there were some things that we learned from this experience. But one of the things, this right here talks about the economy of slavery, right? So I'm going to go into this real quick. I'm going to maximize these things, and then so there's me and baby there. And there was a whole thing about life under slavery, and it talked about it in a very salient way. It wasn't that slavery is horrible. Let's first start there. It is absolutely horrible. There's no such thing as good slavery. It just doesn't exist. But the historians who wrote this and put together the exhibits, they did this in a very, I'll say, politically correct way, while telling what the actual horrors of slavery were. And that's good. That's, it's telling the story, but it's not doing it in such a way to induce a guilt trip. And this is where I want to hang my hat for a second, because what is happening now is people like the president and his supporters seem to think that there is this national guilt trip that's being laid on white people, and that's not the case at all. What the reality is that this is part of the American fabric. This is part of the American story. This is something that must be told, because those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. But those who whitewash history are willing to repeat it. But I digress. I'll carry on here. And again, there's my baby. And, it talks about the daily business of slavery, and it talks about the divisiveness of slavery and the brutality of slavery and all of these things. This is all really good stuff, and it tells the story in such a way that it's not guilt inducing, but it actually helps to present the story in a way that is, dare I say, palatable for all people, right? So, but let me carry on here, because this is, all of these things, these are parts of the story of America. Everything from when you go back to the Revolutionary War, and the first person that died in combat in the Revolutionary War was a black man, Crispus Attucks. This is a known fact. And dare I say that if you're willing to take away this, you might be willing to take away that. And take away the fact that there were black people who fought for the independence of this country, even though their own independence was not guaranteed. You see, the founding fathers were fighting for this concept of liberty and saying that all men are created equal with certain inalienable rights. But these rights were not conferred to blacks or to Native Americans. These rights that they fought so hard to gain for themselves, they denied to others. And this is part of the history. And this part of the history has to be told, because you have to remember this, especially when you're unpacking generational trauma. These are things that happen. I mean, here we are at the Liberty Bell. And the Liberty Bell was supposed to be like this bell that when it rang, that this is where the imagery that Martin Luther King Jr. used in his "I Have a Dream" speech, and he said, "Let freedom ring, let freedom ring, let freedom ring to the point where it breaks the bell." My goodness, and who wants to take away that? And I have a question, not just for the MAGA supporters, not just for the rank and file Trump supporters, but I'm talking to you, black people, black man, black woman who support this man. I'm asking you, what part of this is fucking cool to you? What part of this is okay? Do you think that telling the story about your ancestors and what they went through and the generational trauma that was been passed over generations, over centuries, that this part of the story should not be told? Y'all help me out here. I'll put it in the chat if you feel that way. I want to know, because I can't fathom how anybody can support this. I'm matter of fact, I'm at the point now where I can't even fathom where anybody supports Donald Trump or his administration. Because if you are in support of this right now, I'm going to say something that people are not going to like. But if you support this right now, you are a horrible human being. You suck ass.
Or they just don't care.
No, they don't care.
Because it is not affecting
No,
them.
they don't care because, but if you don't care because it doesn't affect you, you still you're a horrible human being and you suck ass. My wife is she's trying to straighten me up. She wants to keep me on the straight and narrow, keep me out of hell. But I always say I'm going to hell in every religion. So here we go. So another picture of the Liberty Bell up close and personal. And there's baby at the Liberty Bell. And I'm taking you through all of this because this was a wonderful experience. This was a solemn, humbling, and edifying and uplifting experience for us because we're able to see the things that some of our ancestors had to go to, like Ona Judge, who escaped from George Washington's plantation. And she escaped to the point where she was never recovered. But years later, she lived to tell the story. She lived to tell the story of what slavery was like in the president's house. And his chef, Hercules, who also escaped and was never recovered. These are stories of American history because, see, watch this. People don't escape from anything that they're cool with. You don't escape from anything that you like. And dare I say, some of you want to escape from your life in the form of vacations because your life sucks so bad that you want to get a vacation. So you want to get out and go trip somewhere. But you can't understand why somebody would want to escape from the plantation. Listen, again, I don't understand you. I don't understand you. Matter of fact, you can give me all of your best characterizations, all of your best evidence, all of your best research, and you will never convince me of that. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm a pretty open-minded fellow because I've gone from being a very conservative Republican to a very left-leaning neo-socialist. I've gone from being a Christian pastor and bishop to being an agnostic anti-theist. So I've been open-minded to change. So you can't tell me that I can't change, but I'm going to tell you something that when you talk about all of this shit that Trump and his people proffer, and you think that somehow what you say is going to change my mind, it isn't, because I've studied it and I've been in Republican circles where you have not. So that's my little logical fallacy, my appeal to authority. But anyway, I digress. There I am in front of one of the exhibits, which all of these exhibits are probably gone now. And it's horrible. And one of the things that I want to say is that it is important. And if any of you want a copy of this slideshow, and I'll make sure that I take out the pictures of me and baby, I'll make sure that you just get the historical record. But if you want any of this slideshow, I'll send it to you. I'll be more than happy to send it to you. Why? Because you need to see this. If you have never seen it, you need to see it. You need to see what the contributions of Black people were to America. You need to see the struggles that they went through. You need to see the trauma that they endured. You need to know this because this is part and parcel of the fabric of this country. Oh no, I talked about the Native Americans too, babe. I did that. I talked about the Asians. People, the Chinese people were imported over to the United States to build the railroads.
I know that they took down at the Liberty Bell. We have pictures of all of them.
Oh yeah. So we have pictures of all of these things, all the contributions of all Americans, not just the Black Americans. So again, all of this is likely gone. This is history that had been in the national public view for decades, and now with the stroke of a pen, it's gone. And you need to understand this, because what this guy is doing is, by executive fiat, is rewriting American history and rewriting it to suit him, so the people that feel like him and the people that support him, they're not butthurt about these things being discussed, but they do absolutely need to be discussed. I mean, this is a picture of Dr. King that was at the memorial, and again, folks, bear with me because this is very tiny on my screen, so I can't see it. Hopefully, you can see it better, and I'm leaving it on the screen long enough so you can hit pause and expand it. Zoom in, zoom out. Because you need to see this. You need to every placard in this thing that I'm posting. You need to stop and read this. You need to internalize it. You need to process it. You need to unpack it because again, what's happening here is we are watching the revision of American history in real time by people who don't care about everybody. The whole idea of a melting pot is lost on them. What they want is a homogenous white society. I'm just going to say it.
Male run.
Thank you, babe. A homogenous white male run. And there are actually people that are close to the Trump administration who have actually said that it is exceptional white men that make this country great, not diversity. And mind you, do you know that when President Trump has started off with this in his first term by eliminating the teaching of the Tuskegee Airmen at the Air Force Academy, which the Tuskegee Airmen were an extraordinary group of black men who were taught to fly, and they turned out to be the most successful fighter and bomber escort squadron during World War II. And these men served gallantly, valiantly, heroically, only to come back to the United States and just be another nigger. And that's the truth. Now, I'm going to say something here too that is going to piss off a lot of my brothers and sisters of the black persuasion, because some of you may say, well, Derrick, with you being light skinned and green eyed and everything, that you're probably exempt from a lot of this. Let me explain something to you, right? That my dreadlock hair, that when people get past my fair skin and my green eyes, they see my nappy hair and they know I'm just another nigger. I don't claim any special privilege. And I'm going to tell you something. All of you light-skinned folks out here who think you do, you don't. You don't. Because at the end of the day, you will be just another slave on the plantation. I mean, it's just amazing to me how we will sit idly by and allow all of our gains, the gains of civil rights, the gains of voting rights, the gains of marriage equality, the gains of being able to live where we want and to be able to borrow what we can. All of these things that we take for granted, these are things that I promise you that there are factions within this current administration that want to roll these liberties back. Do you understand when they say make America great again, what do they actually mean? Because first of all, I would challenge you. Tell me when America was great. When was America ever great? Because I promise you that point in time doesn't exist. But I'm going to tell you where the folks that say make America great, where they're pointing to. And I can use one of my favorite illustrations, a car illustration. I love car illustrations because I love cars. But watch this. The most popular classic car in the United States of America is what? The 1957 Chevrolet. The 57 Chevy is iconic. Everybody knows what a 57 Chevy Bel Air looks like. Everybody knows. But guess what? The reason why 1957 is so important because that was the year before Brown versus Board of Education. That was back when if you go and look at reruns of All in the Family, when Archie and Edith would sing that song, those were the days, and they said, and you knew who you were then. Girls were girls and men were men. That is referring to a specific point in time when you colored folk knew your place. And that's what, that's the American dream, when they didn't have to worry about women being able to vote, or women being able to have economic freedom, or reproductive freedom, or when black folks didn't have the franchise to vote, or they couldn't live in your neighborhoods. These were the days. And that is when they talk about making America great again. That's what they're talking about. And going back to the days of McCarthyism, when the Red Menace was a thing. I'm going to tell you something. People say, they'll say to me, "Oh, you're a communist," and having been in the military, and having to swear that you were not a communist in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Let me tell you something. You know what? I align myself more with communists now than I ever did. And the reason for that is that communism was a boogeyman, because America loves boogeyman. That's what they do. They create boogeyman to get people lathered up and fired up, and to resist any change. Listen, Philadelphia is just the beginning, because it's been said that Trump doesn't like the exhibits about slavery in the Smithsonian. I'm sure that he doesn't like them in the American Museum of Art or the American Museum of History. He doesn't like any of this stuff. And his supporters don't like this stuff. They want it all to go away. They want to sweep every contribution, every significant accomplishment, everything about the Black experience in America under the collective American rug. But I'm going to tell you something, folks. You can do something about it. You can do something about it. Midterms are coming up. And let me say this about that, because I talked about Alex Pretty, who was murdered yesterday by ICE agents or Border Patrol or whatever, and it is said that Attorney General Pam Bondi sent a letter to the governor of Minnesota saying that she would remove ICE from Minneapolis if Minnesota turned over their voting records. See, y'all, this is not about immigrants. And it's not about immigrants taking jobs. It's not about immigrants taking benefits. What this is all about is coalescing political power and getting you accustomed to living in a police state. This is what is going on here. Getting you used to whitewashing history, getting you used to the Justice Department weaponizing itself against entertainers and against political opponents, is getting you used to the same sort of things that Hitler got the Germans accustomed to prior to World War II. And if you don't see this, you're blind. And one analogy that I would not say is blind as a bat, because there are actually bats that see very well. And frankly, even a blind bat sees better than a MAGA. And I'll just say that, because if you're still on the Trump jock right now, you are blind. You are totally spiritually, intellectually, and emotionally blind. Matter of fact, dare I say that the devil would have no use for you, because you have no soul. I mean, these are some of the monuments. Just look at some of this stuff. These are monuments, testimonies to the power of Black people to overcome the adverse and vicious conditions that they were brought to this country under. These are illustrations of Native Americans and how they were able to overcome being brutally murdered and having their land stolen. That's what this chronicles. But these are the things that your president, not mine, because for my money, cholesterol can step up and do his job a little bit better. But I'll digress on that. But I mean, you need to. I'm holding this out here so that you guys can see this and zoom in. Look at some of this stuff. Look at this and meditate on it, ruminate on it, because this isn't just my history. This is your history. How we got here is a joint effort. And like Dr. King said, either we will learn to live together as brothers or we'll die together as fools. But I'm thinking that the latter is coming. I'm thinking that because there's a fool in the White House and he's surrounded by fools, and he's got millions of fools as supporters, that ultimately dying together as fools is probably a more viable option for them. Again, I'm putting these out here. I'm going through them slowly just so that you can zoom in and read them. Because unfortunately, while they're on my screen here, I can't. And while I'm here, if you see something here that resonates with you, or something that challenges you, makes you think, pricks your conscience, please share this with others, because this is important stuff. What's happening in Philadelphia, understand this what happened in Philadelphia, think of this as the first shot in the next civil war, because that's where this is headed. Because not only do they want to erase history, but they want to actually get rid of everything that is not white. I hate to say it, but that's the tight but right. And again, more history. More history. You guys need to catch all of this. Because one day it's going to go away. I'll never forget this. One time, this was about 25 years or so ago. I was in Toys R Us. I don't know, maybe it's a little bit longer than that, but maybe not. That's about right. Because I was buying Furbies. I made a lot of money on those rascals. But anyway, there was a white lady in there, and she had her daughter with her, and they were buying black dolls. And a black lady asked her, "Why, I see that you're white, but why are you buying these black dolls?" And the white mother said, "Because someday all of these dolls will be gone." I'm just putting it out there. I mean, I'm giving you the game for free. I'm letting you know what's going on in the minds of folks. Again, more history. Zoom in, read this. And again, if you want the actual slideshow, minus the pictures of me and baby, I will be more than happy to send them to you, because you need to see this. You need to read this. And I'll tell you something. I'm being really nice right now, because there are certain people that I actually want to call out by name. And my wife says, "You will not," because she's sitting over here babysitting me now, so I don't say anything really crazy. But and no, she's not babysitting me. She actually likes what I say sometimes. But the reality is that if you want to see this, I'll be more than happy to share it with you, because it's gone now. And my biggest fear is that it won't be put in some archive someplace. My fear is that it'll be put in a great big bonfire somewhere on the mall in Washington, D.C., and it'll all be burned. It'll be burned to the ground, and you will watch your history go away. Again, I'm zooming out so you can you can see these things. Again, so much history. And again, look at this Liberty Bell. Look at it. And really contemplate what this meant. This was the sound of liberty. And at some point, some really well-meaning, sentient human being decided that the ringing of that bell, the sound of that bell, was not just for white people. That was for all people. And that was the whole thing with the erection of the Statue of Liberty, a welcoming beacon to the land of opportunity. Y'all, this is supposed to be, I think it's Woody Guthrie that made this song. This land is your land. This land is my land. This is supposed to belong to all of us. This is supposed to be a public trust, something that is shared among all who are born here, and that serves as a welcome mat to those who come from places of oppression and regression and disenfranchisement, so that they could come over here and they can find a better life. But yet and still, it's like people, you've got these goons out here trying to intimidate and brutalize people and drive them out of this country, when it is the immigrant that has made this country great. And at the end of the day, we're all, with the exception of the Native Americans, all immigrants. We all came from someplace else. This land is not yours because of manifest destiny. This land is not yours because of the quality of your violence. This land is not yours because of the pervasiveness of your religious or political thought. This land belongs to everybody. And if you believe in God, if this land is God's land, and this land belongs to everybody. I'm Derrick Day, and that's what I have to say today. I hope that this is something that will cause you to think. And if it pisses you off, I don't care. Let me know in the comments, one way or the other. If you love it, great. If you hate it, great. I don't care one way or the other. But you're going to hear what I have to say. And I'm going to keep talking about these things because I'm feeling a need right now to share what's going on, because it has gotten to the point where silence is no longer an option. Silence is not an option. So until the next time, for those of you who don't support Trump, I love you. Peace and hair grease.